My daughter-in-law posted photos of her new business opening, VIPs only. I, the angel investor who put up $200,000, wasn't invited. What Victoria didn't know was that I still had something she needed. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. A week later, my son called. "Mom, payroll is late. Where's the next check?" I laughed. "The VIPs didn't tell you?" The silence on the other end of the line was worth every cent I hadn't sent. I should start from the beginning. My name is Deborah Collins. Most people call me Deb. I'm 68 years old, a widow, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a good relationship with my only son. The Instagram post appeared on a Thursday afternoon, October 12th, 2023. I remember because I was sitting in the same kitchen chair where Harold proposed to me 43 years ago. The same chair where I signed the check that would fund my daughter-in-law's dream. Luxe, Salon and Spa. Grand opening, the caption read. "Thank you to all our VIPs for making tonight magical. This is just the beginning." The photos showed champagne flutes, pink balloons, women in cocktail dresses. Victoria stood in the center of every shot, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile wide enough to sell toothpaste. My son Marcus was beside her in some photos, looking proud and handsome in a navy blazer I'd bought him for his birthday. There were at least 40 people in that salon, local business owners. The mayor's wife, Victoria's mother and sisters, a reporter from the Charlotte Observer. I was not there. I had not been invited. $200,000. That's what I gave them 8 months ago. Everything Harold left me except the house and a small pension. I sold my wedding ring to make the final $15,000. 18-karat gold, princess-cut diamond, the ring Harold saved for 2 years to buy. I took it to a jeweler on Trade Street and walked out with a cashier's check and an empty finger. Victoria had cried when I handed over the money, actual tears rolling down her cheeks. "Mom, you don't know what this means to us," she said, using the name she'd never used before and would rarely use again. "We'll pay you back within 2 years, 3 at most, and you'll always have a place at Luxe. Always." I believed her. That's the part that still stings. I looked at this woman who'd been married to my son for 6 years, and I believed every word. Marcus called me the morning after the grand opening, not to apologize, not to explain, to ask for more money. "Mom, we've got a small cash flow problem. The opening was more expensive than we planned. The caterer alone was $8,000. He said it casually, like he was asking to borrow $20 for gas. "We need another $50,000 to cover payroll next week." I was still in bed, still in my nightgown, still staring at those Instagram photos on my phone. "Marcus," I said slowly, "why wasn't I invited to the opening?" "What? Of course you were invited. Victoria sent the invitation weeks ago. You must not have gotten it." "I didn't get any invitation, Marcus. No email, no card, no phone call, nothing. That's weird. I'll ask Vicky about it. Probably got lost in the mail. Anyway, about the payroll, I saw the photos. Your mother-in-law was there. Victoria's sisters, the mayor's wife." I kept my voice steady. "Everyone was there except me." "Mom, it was just an oversight. You know how crazy things get with a new business. Vicky's been working 18-hour days. She probably just forgot to follow up." Forgot. The woman who remembered every slight, every missed birthday, every gift that wasn't expensive enough, she forgot to invite the person who funded her entire dream. "I need to think about it," I said. "Think about what?" "Mom, people's paychecks depend on this. Our employees have families." Then maybe Victoria should have thought about that before spending $8,000 on a caterer for a party I wasn't invited to. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, though there was plenty of that. From something deeper. The slow, cold realization that I had been used. I spent that day going through my files. Every document related to the investment. The loan agreement Victoria had asked me to sign. Just a formality, Mom. So the bank knows where the money came from. The business plan Marcus had presented, full of projections and charts. The thank you card Victoria sent after I transferred the funds. The loan agreement listed me as a private lender, not a partner, not an investor, just someone who gave money. The business registration, which I found online through the North Carolina Secretary of State website, listed Victoria Collins as the sole owner of Lux Salon and Spa LLC. Marcus wasn't on it. I certainly wasn't on it. The operating agreement, which I'd never seen before Victoria asked me to sign the loan document, apparently didn't include any provision for my $200,000 contribution, beyond a promise to repay within a commercially reasonable time frame. I called my friend Kathleen that afternoon. We've known each other since our kids were in Little League together. She's a retired paralegal with a sharp mind and no tolerance for nonsense. "Read me the loan agreement," she said. "Deb," she said when I finished, "you've been played. This agreement doesn't give you any ownership stake. No equity, no voting rights, no guaranteed repayment timeline. It's basically a gift that they've agreed to pay back someday, maybe, if they feel like it." The room tilted. I had to grip the edge of the kitchen table. But Victoria said, "Honey, it doesn't matter what Victoria said. It matters what's on paper. And on paper, you gave away $200,000 with no strings attached." I thought about Harold, what he would say if he could see me now. Harold, who spent 35 years as a bank manager, who read every contract 3 times before signing, who always said, "Trust, but verify." I could almost hear his voice. "Debbie, what were you thinking?" I wasn't thinking. That was the problem. I was feeling grateful that Victoria seemed to finally accept me after 6 years of coldness, feeling proud that I could help my son build something, feeling useful for the first time since Harold died. Victoria knew exactly which buttons to push. My phone rang again that evening. "Marcus, Mom, I talked to Vicky. She feels terrible about the invitation mix-up. She wants to take you to lunch next week, just the 2 of you. Clear the air." "That's nice. What about the payroll?" "Well, that's still an issue. The staff is depending on us. I hate to ask again, but..." A pause. "Mom, these are real people with real bills." Then Victoria should have budgeted better. She should have spent less on champagne and more on paying her employees. "You don't understand how business works." "Marcus, I was an accountant for 40 years. I understand exactly how business works. What I don't understand is how my son can call me asking for money 8 hours after his wife threw a party I wasn't invited to." "The VIPs didn't tell you," I said. "Ask your wife where the money went. Ask her why the woman who funded her salon wasn't on the guest list. And then maybe we can have a conversation about what I'm willing to do next." My hand found the bare spot on my left ring finger, the indent where Harold's ring used to sit. 41 years of marriage, reduced to a deposit in Victoria Collins's business account. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept looking at those Instagram photos, zooming in on faces, Victoria's triumphant smile, Marcus's proud grin, the champagne, the flowers, the decorations. None of it would exist without my money, without Harold's money, without the ring he bought me when we were both young and poor and so in love it hurt. And I wasn't even worth an invitation. I made a decision that night, lying in the dark at 3 a.m. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for certain. Victoria Collins had made a very expensive mistake. She forgot that the person who gives you everything can also take it away. She forgot that a 68-year-old widow has nothing but time to think and plan. She forgot that I spent 40 years finding errors in spreadsheets, catching discrepancies, untangling lies told in numbers. She forgot about me entirely, and that was going to cost her. The next morning I called a lawyer, not the family attorney who'd handled Harold's estate, but a specialist in business litigation. His name was Frank Brennan, and according to his website, he'd recovered over $50 million for defrauded investors. "Tell me everything," he said when I sat down in his office. "Don't leave out a single detail." When I finished, Frank leaned back in his chair and smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a shark who'd just spotted blood in the water. "Mrs. Collins," he said, "I think we can work together." Frank Brennan spent 3 hours with me that first day. He took notes on a yellow legal pad, asked questions I hadn't thought to consider, and made copies of every document I'd brought. "The good news," he said, "is that you have a paper trail, the loan agreement, the bank transfers, the text messages about repayment. That's more than most people in your situation have. The bad news is that Victoria Collins appears to be very good at protecting herself. This agreement is designed to give her maximum flexibility and you minimum recourse. I thought about Victoria's tears when I handed over the money, her promises, her lies. Frank smiled that shark smile again. We start by finding out exactly what she's been doing with your money, and then we make her very, very uncomfortable. He explained the process. Discovery requests, subpoenas for financial records, depositions. It would take time and money, but if Victoria had been misusing the funds, we would find out. There's one more thing, he said as I was leaving. Do you have any ongoing relationship with the business? Any reason you'd need to interact with them? They want more money. Marcus called asking for $50,000 for payroll. Frank's eyes lit up. Perfect. String them along. Don't say yes, but don't say no. The more they think you might still invest, the more information they might reveal. I drove home with a strange feeling in my chest. It took me a while to identify it. Hope. For the first time since I saw those Instagram photos, I felt like I wasn't completely powerless. Victoria called me that evening. First time she'd ever called me directly without going through Marcus first. Mom! Her voice was syrupy sweet. I am so sorry about the invitation mix-up. I thought Marcus had handled it. You know how these things get lost in the shuffle. Of course, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I want to make it up to you. Let's have lunch this week. My treat. There's a lovely French restaurant downtown that just opened. A French restaurant. My $200,000 funded her salon, and she was offering me a $50 lunch as an apology. That sounds nice, I said. How's the business doing? Oh, it's fantastic. Better than we expected. We're already booking clients 3 weeks out. That's wonderful. And the payroll issue Marcus mentioned? A slight pause, just a fraction of a second. Oh, that. Just a temporary cash flow thing. You know how it is with new businesses. The money goes out before it comes in. How much do you need exactly? Well, Marcus said $50,000, but honestly, $30,000 would cover the immediate needs. We could pay you back within 6 months, 8 at most. I almost laughed. 6 months ago, it was 2 years. Now it was 6 months for a smaller amount. The timeline kept shrinking while the asks kept coming. I'll think about it, I said. Let's talk at lunch. After I hung up, I wrote down everything she'd said. The business was doing fantastic. They were booking 3 weeks out, but they still needed $30,000 for payroll? Those numbers didn't add up. I called Frank the next morning and told him about the conversation. Good work, he said. Keep her talking, and don't give her a dime. Lunch was on Thursday at a restaurant called Le Petit Jardin. Victoria was already seated when I arrived, looking perfect in a cream-colored blouse and gold jewelry. She stood and hugged me like we were old friends. You look wonderful, she said. Is that a new blouse? It wasn't. It was 3 years old, but I smiled and sat down. The restaurant was expensive. White tablecloths, heavy silverware, prices that didn't include dollar signs. Victoria ordered a $40 salad and a glass of champagne. I ordered soup. So, she said, leaning forward with concern painted on her face. How have you been, really? It must be so hard being alone in that big house. We worry about you. I'm fine. Keeping busy. That's good. Harold would want you to take care of yourself. She paused. He'd be so proud of what we're building with Lux. His legacy, really, living on through the business. I set down my spoon. Harold's legacy? Well, yes. The money he left you, that you invested in us. It's like he's still contributing to the family's success. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd taken my dead husband's money, excluded me from the celebration, and now she was reframing the whole thing as Harold's gift to her. Victoria, I said slowly, Harold didn't leave his money for your business. He left it for me, for my security. Of course, of course. She waved her hand dismissively. I just meant that it's wonderful how it's being used. Family helping family. I let the moment pass. Remembered Frank's advice. Keep her talking. Tell me more about the salon. How many employees do you have now? Victoria lit up. She loved talking about herself. For the next 20 minutes, she detailed every aspect of Lux. the custom Italian styling chairs, the organic product line, the celebrity colorist she'd poached from a competitor. Each detail represented more of my money spent. And the books? I asked casually. Marcus said there were some cash flow issues. Her smile flickered. Nothing serious, just the usual startup challenges. Actually, that's why I wanted to talk to you. We've been approached by an investor, she said, lowering her voice. Someone who wants to put in $500,000 for a 40% stake, but I'd rather keep it in the family. If you could come up with another $100,000, we could give you a 10% ownership stake. Real equity this time. Voting rights, the whole thing. I stared at her. She was asking for more money while simultaneously admitting she'd given me nothing for my original $200,000. Let me understand, I said. You're offering to sell me 10% for $100,000, but my original $200,000 bought me nothing. That was a loan, Mom. This would be an investment. Totally different. It's actually a great deal. You'd be getting in at a discount. This other investor values us at $1.25 million. I did the math in my head. If the business was worth $1.25 million and I'd put in $200,000, I should own about 16% already. Instead, I owned nothing. I need to think about it, I said. Of course. Take your time. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm so glad we had this talk. I really want us to be close, you know? Like real family. Like real family. The family that hadn't invited me to their party. The family that only called when they needed money. The family that was systematically extracting my life savings while pretending to love me. I smiled and squeezed back. Me too, Victoria. Me too. That afternoon, I called Frank and told him about the lunch. About the other investor. The $500,000 offer. The 10% stake for $100,000. Interesting, he said. If they really have someone offering $500,000, why are they still coming to you for smaller amounts? Maybe the other investor isn't real? Or maybe the other investor is smarter than you were. He paused. No offense. Here's what I want you to do. Tell Victoria you're interested, but you need to see the books first. Due diligence. Any legitimate business owner would expect that. I called Victoria that night. She sounded delighted when I said I was considering the investment. I just need to see the financial statements first, I said. Standard due diligence. The line went silent for 3 full seconds. Of course, she finally said. I'll have Marcus put something together for you. I'd prefer to see the actual books. Bank statements, P&L, balance sheet. The same thing you'd show that other investor. Another pause. Well, that's a lot of confidential information. I'd have to think about that. Victoria, you're asking me for $100,000. Surely you can understand why I'd want to see where the first $200,000 went. I'll talk to Marcus, she said. Her voice had lost its warmth. I'll call you back. She didn't call back for 3 days. When she did, it was to say that their accountant was reorganizing the books, and the records wouldn't be available for a few weeks. They're hiding something, he said. Time to turn up the heat. 2 days later, Victoria received a letter from Frank's office. A formal demand for a full accounting of my $200,000 investment, copies of all financial records, and a meeting to discuss repayment terms. Marcus called me within an hour of the letter arriving. Mom, what the hell is this? Why are you getting lawyers involved? Because I asked to see the books and Victoria said no. She didn't say no. She said they were being reorganized. Marcus, I'm an accountant. I've been reorganizing books for 40 years. It takes a few hours, not weeks. This is ridiculous. We're family. We don't sue each other. I'm not suing anyone. I'm simply asking for documentation of how my money is being used. Your money? His voice rose. You gave us that money. It's not yours anymore. I let the words hang in the air between us. That's an interesting position to take, I finally said. I'll let my lawyer know. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my kitchen, the kitchen where Harold proposed, the kitchen where I wrote the check that was supposed to bring my family closer together. Instead, it had shown me exactly what my family really was. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. This isn't over. Vicky is furious. You're making a huge mistake. I set the phone down and looked out the window. October had turned to November, and the leaves were falling. Harold's rose bushes needed to be prepared for winter. He always handled that. I went outside and started pruning, working with my hands, doing something Harold would have done. The thorns pricked my fingers through my gardening gloves, but I kept going. My phone buzzed again and again with messages from Marcus. I ignored them all. Some things were worth the pain. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. For 39 years, I had hosted the family dinner in my dining room. Harold would carve the turkey while I brought out dish after dish, my mother's stuffing, green bean casserole, sweet potatoes with marshmallows, 3 kinds of pie. After Harold died, I kept the tradition going. Last year, Marcus and Victoria came. Victoria complained about the stuffing being too salty and left early, but at least they came. This year, I received a text from Marcus. Having Thanksgiving at Vicky's mom's house this year. Hope you understand. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Kathleen invited me to her daughter's house, but I declined. I wasn't ready to be someone's charity case at the holiday table, the sad widow who had nowhere else to go. Instead, I spent the day going through Harold's papers. Over 40 years of marriage, Harold had saved everything. Tax returns from the 1980s, receipts for appliances we no longer owned, letters from his mother, written in a spidery hand that I could barely read, and notebooks, dozens of notebooks filled with his careful handwriting. In his later years, Harold had become something of an amateur genealogist. He traced his family back to a small town in Ireland, my family to farmers in Germany. He spent hours on ancestry websites, ordering birth certificates and death records, building family trees that spread across our dining room table. I had always found it a harmless hobby, something to keep his mind sharp after retirement. Now, sitting alone on Thanksgiving, I found myself pulling out his research on the Collins family tree. And that's when I found something interesting. Harold had traced Marcus's line forward as well as backward. Notes about Marcus's childhood, his education, his career. And tucked into the back of the notebook, a folder labeled Victoria Background. My heart started beating faster. Inside were printouts from various websites. A news article from a small town in Virginia about a woman named Victoria Simmons, who had been accused of embezzling from her employer. Charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence. The article included a photo. A younger Victoria, but unmistakably her. Another printout, a civil court case from Florida. Victoria Simmons sued by a former business partner for fraud. Case settled out of court. A third printout, a wedding announcement from 6 years ago. Victoria Simmons marrying Marcus Collins. Below it, in Harold's handwriting. Same person? Verify. Harold knew. Or at least, Harold suspected. He'd been researching Victoria's background before he died, and he never told me. I called Kathleen immediately. I need you to come over, I said, right now. She was there in 20 minutes, still in her Thanksgiving clothes. I showed her what I'd found. My God, she said, reading the articles. Embezzlement? Fraud? The charges were dropped in Virginia. The Florida case was settled. Settled usually means they paid to make it go away. Kathleen looked up at me. Harold knew about this? Apparently, but he never said anything. Maybe he was still investigating, or maybe he didn't want to upset you. I thought about the last months of Harold's life. The cancer had been aggressive, spreading from his pancreas before we even knew it was there. He'd spent his final weeks too tired to do much more than sit in his chair and watch television. If he'd found something about Victoria, he might not have had the strength to pursue it. I need to get these to Frank, I said. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I was in Frank's office again. He studied the documents with increasing interest. This is very helpful, he said. Prior bad acts, a pattern of behavior. Can we use it in court? Maybe. Depends on how the case develops. He set down the papers. But more importantly, this gives us leverage. Victoria doesn't know you have this information. She thinks you're just an angry mother-in-law. She doesn't know you're building a case. Frank smiled. We keep building. Over the next few weeks, Frank's team dug deeper. They found 3 more civil suits involving Victoria or companies she'd been associated with, 2 bankruptcies, a complaint filed with the Better Business Bureau by a client of her previous salon. They also obtained the financial records from Lux through a court order. What they found was disturbing. She's been paying herself a salary of $250,000 a year, Frank told me. Marcus is getting another $150,000. Together, that's $400,000 in salaries for a business that's only been operating for 8 months. That's almost double my investment. Exactly. She burned through your $200,000 in the first 4 months, mostly on business development and marketing, categories that are almost impossible to verify. Then she started taking her salary from operating revenue, which is why she needed more cash for payroll. So there's no money left? There's about $12,000 in the business account. The rest is gone. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of my chair. Legally, it's more complicated than that. She used the money for legitimate business expenses on paper, but between the salaries, the grand opening party, the renovations, the consulting fees paid to her mother and sisters, yes, she effectively transferred your investment to herself and her family. I thought about Victoria's tears, her promises, her hugs, all while she was planning to take everything. What about the repayment terms in the loan agreement? Commercially reasonable time frame is vague enough to be almost meaningless. She could argue that it means 10 years, 20 years. We'd have to prove she never intended to repay, which means proving fraud. Frank pulled out another folder. I've been saving the best for last. Remember that other investor Victoria mentioned? The one offering $500,000. He doesn't exist. There's no investor. There's no $500,000 offer. Victoria made it up to pressure you into giving more money. Something cold settled in my chest. Not surprise exactly, more like confirmation of what I'd suspected all along. We subpoenaed her emails. There's no communication with any potential investor. No term sheets, no meetings, no due diligence. The whole thing was fabricated. Frank leaned forward. Mrs. Collins, your daughter-in-law didn't just take your money. She lied to get it, lied about how she was using it, and lied to try to get more. That's fraud. And fraud is something we can work with. I drove home in a daze. The December sky was gray and heavy, promising snow. Christmas decorations were appearing in windows along my street. I had no tree, no decorations, no plans. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. We need to talk. This has gone too far. I typed back. I agree. Meet me at the house tomorrow, 3 p.m. Then I called Frank. They want to talk. Can you give me something to confront them with? I can give you everything. But are you sure you want to do this yourself? I could be there. I need to do this alone. I need to see their faces. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in the dark and thought about Marcus as a child, his first steps, his first words, the way he used to crawl into bed with Harold and me during thunderstorms. Where had that boy gone? When had he turned into someone who could watch his wife steal from his mother? Or maybe he'd always been capable of it. Maybe I just hadn't wanted to see. The next afternoon, Marcus arrived alone. Victoria had refused to come, he said. She was too upset. Too upset to face what she's done? I asked. Marcus sat in Harold's old chair. He looked tired, older than his 34 years. Mom, you don't understand. Victoria works so hard. She's under so much pressure. The salon, the employees, everyone depending on her. I know about the salaries. $250,000 for Victoria, $150,000 for you. I know about the consulting fees to her mother and sisters. I know about the fake investor she invented to pressure me for more money. Marcus's face went pale. How? I know that my $200,000 is gone, spent. There's $12,000 left in the account. I know that Victoria has a history of fraud allegations going back 15 years. Those were all misunderstandings. I know that your father knew. My voice cracked on the last word. He was researching her before he died. He found the articles, the court cases. He knew what she was. Marcus stared at me. Dad knew? He never had time to tell me. Or maybe he was trying to protect me. I don't know. I wiped my eyes. But I know now. The room was silent except for the tick of Harold's grandfather clock. "What do you want?" Marcus finally asked. "I want my money back." "Then sell the salon." "We can't. It's mortgaged. There's a business loan." "There's always an excuse, isn't there?" I stood up. "Victoria always has a reason why she can't do the right thing. And you always make excuses for her." Marcus stood too. For a moment, we faced each other across the living room. The same room where he'd taken his first steps, where Harold had taught him to throw a football, where we'd celebrated birthdays and graduations and Christmases. "I can't choose between you," he said. He left without another word. I heard his car start, saw his headlights sweep across the front windows as he backed out of the driveway. I sat down in Harold's chair, still warm from where Marcus had been sitting, and I cried. January brought cold weather and a court date. Frank had filed the lawsuit 3 weeks after my confrontation with Marcus. Fraud, breach of contract, conversion of funds. He'd named Victoria as the primary defendant and Marcus as a secondary defendant. "I don't want to sue my son," I'd said when he presented the filing. "I understand. But legally, he received benefit from the fraud. His salary came from your money. If we don't name him, Victoria's lawyers will argue that you approved of the arrangement. So Marcus's name went on the lawsuit too. My son, the defendant." Words I never thought I'd say. The local news picked up the story. Charlotte wasn't a small town, but it wasn't so big that a lawsuit involving a new salon and $200,000 went unnoticed. A reporter from the Charlotte Observer called for a comment. I declined. Victoria apparently did not. "Luke's salon owner calls lawsuit family drama," the headline read. The article quoted Victoria saying the allegations were completely baseless and a sad attempt by a bitter family member to extort money. Extort. The word stung. I'd given them everything, and now I was the extortionist. But the article also mentioned Victoria's prior legal troubles, which Frank had helpfully made part of the public record. The Virginia embezzlement case, the Florida fraud settlement, the bankruptcies. For the first time, Victoria's carefully constructed image began to crack. The salon's Yelp reviews started changing too. Not from me, I would never stoop to that, but from people who'd read the article and done their own research. 3-star reviews became 2 stars. Comments about questionable business practices appeared. One reviewer wrote, "Beautiful salon, but after reading about the owner, I'll take my business elsewhere." Victoria's Instagram went private. The salon's booking calendar, once full for weeks, started showing same-day availability. I took no pleasure in any of it. Or at least I tried not to. Kathleen came over for coffee one morning and found me reading the reviews on my laptop. "Deb, step away from the computer. You're obsessing. It's not healthy." She was right. I closed the laptop. "How are you doing?" "Really?" she asked. "I don't know." I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug. Some days I feel strong, like I'm finally fighting back. Other days I just feel sad. I miss my son. I miss who I thought he was. Maybe he'll come around. Maybe. I didn't believe it, but hope dies hard. The court hearing was on January 15th, just a preliminary motion, Frank said. Nothing dramatic would happen, but I wanted to be there. I wanted Victoria to see me sitting in that courtroom. The courthouse was cold and impersonal. Fluorescent lights, hard benches, the smell of industrial cleaner. Victoria and Marcus sat on one side with their lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit. I sat on the other side with Frank and Kathleen, who'd insisted on coming for moral support. Victoria looked different than I'd ever seen her. She'd lost weight, and not in a healthy way. Her face was drawn, her makeup heavy, her smile absent. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed, but she quickly looked away. Marcus didn't look at me at all. The hearing lasted less than an hour. Legal arguments about discovery and depositions and motion deadlines. Nothing was decided, but nothing was dismissed either. The case would proceed. As we were leaving, Marcus caught up with me in the hallway. I stopped. Frank put a hand on my arm, ready to intervene if needed. "I just wanted to say," Marcus's voice cracked, "I'm sorry. Not for everything, just, I'm sorry it came to this. Can we talk? Just the two of us?" I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised, the man I barely recognized. "Call me," I said. When you're ready to have an honest conversation. He nodded and walked back to where Victoria was waiting. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the exit, shooting me a look of pure hatred as they passed. Frank watched them go. She's scared, he said. That's good for us. I didn't feel good. I felt hollow. The call came 2 days later. Marcus, asking if he could come over. Alone this time. Victoria doesn't know I'm calling, he said. Please don't tell her. He arrived after dark, parking down the street like he was having an affair. I watched him walk up the driveway, his shoulders hunched against the cold. Thanks for seeing me, he said when I opened the door. I led him to the kitchen, made coffee. The rituals of hospitality, even now. I've been thinking, he said, about Dad, about what he would say if he could see all this. Your father would be heartbroken. I know. Marcus stared into his coffee. He never liked Victoria. Did you know that? He told me once right before the wedding. Said he had concerns. Asked if I was sure. Marcus laughed bitterly. I thought he was just being protective. Didn't want to let go of his son. What did you tell him? That I loved her. That she made me happy. He shook his head. I think I believed it then. I'm not sure anymore. I waited. This was more honesty than Marcus had shown in years. Victoria has a way of making you feel special, he continued. Like you're the only person in the world who matters. But then you realize that everyone feels that way around her. She makes everyone feel special until she doesn't need them anymore. Like you, like her first husband, like the business partners she burned through before I met her. Marcus looked up. She didn't tell you? She was married before. For about a year. He left everything in the divorce. House, car, savings account. Victoria said he gave it all up because he felt guilty about cheating on her. And you believed that? I believed everything she told me. His voice was barely a whisper. Until I saw the court documents. I reached across the table and took my son's hand. Marcus, it's not too late to do the right thing. I know. He squeezed my hand. That's why I'm here. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a USB drive. Everything. All the financial records. Victoria's real projections versus what she showed you. The fake investor she invented. Emails between her and her mother about how to manage you. He pushed the drive across the table. And something else. A recording from her phone. She didn't know I was listening. She was talking to her sister about the grand opening, laughing about how they'd kept you away because you'd ruined the vibe. I stared at the USB drive. Evidence. Real evidence. Why now? I asked. Why are you giving this to me? Marcus pulled his hand back. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of lying to myself. I'm tired of making excuses for her. And I'm tired of watching her hurt people, especially you. His eyes were red. You sold your wedding ring for her, Mom. Dad's ring. And she laughed about it. Said it was probably fake anyway. Something broke inside me. Not my heart. That was already in pieces. Something else. The last thread of hope that there had been some misunderstanding, some explanation that would make this all make sense. What are you going to do now? I asked. I don't know. She'll destroy me if she finds out I gave you this. She knows things about me, things I'm not proud of. She'll use them. Marcus shook his head. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you have what you need to win. He stood up to leave. At the door, he turned back. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I want you to know. I never meant for any of this to happen. I thought I was building something with her. A life. A future. I know, sweetheart. He was crying now, my 34-year-old son, crying like he had during those thunderstorms when he was small. I miss Dad, he said. I miss who I was when he was alive. I hugged him then, my son, who had betrayed me, who had stood by while his wife stole from me, who had finally found the courage to make it right. Be careful, I said. Victoria won't go down without a fight. I know. He wiped his eyes. Neither will you. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table with the USB drive in my hand. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, the first real snow of the winter. I thought about Harold, about what he would say if he could see me now. I thought about Victoria and all the people she'd hurt. I thought about justice. Then I called Frank. "I have everything," I said. "It's time to end this." Frank called an emergency meeting the next morning. His office felt different now, more war room than conference room. "This changes everything," he said, scrolling through the files on the USB drive. "These emails alone are devastating. Victoria explicitly discussing how to extract maximum investment from you while minimizing your oversight." "And the recording?" He played it. Victoria's voice, tinny but clear. "My mother-in-law actually thought she'd be invited. Can you imagine? Standing there with her orthopedic shoes and her Walmart cardigan, surrounded by actual VIPs? I told Marcus to keep her busy with some story about the invitation getting lost. The last thing I need is her hovering around, asking questions about money." Her sister's voice. "What about when she finds out? By then, we'll have the next round of funding. She'll be so deep in that she can't walk away without losing everything. That's the beauty of the sunk cost fallacy." The recording ended. Frank looked at me. I nodded slowly. I'd known Victoria didn't like me. But hearing it put so bluntly, the contempt, the calculation, was different than suspecting it. "Now we present this to the judge. Victoria's lawyer will try to suppress it, claim it was obtained illegally. But since Marcus made the recording on his own phone and gave it to you willingly, there's a strong argument for admissibility. And if it's admitted, then Victoria's options become very limited. She can settle, give you back whatever money remains and admit no wrongdoing. Or she can fight and risk losing everything. What would she lose? If we prove fraud, which this evidence strongly supports, she could face criminal charges. The civil judgment could include treble damages, 3 times your $200,000. And her professional licenses would be revoked. She'd never work in the beauty industry in North Carolina again." I thought about that. Victoria's whole identity was wrapped up in her salon. Take that away, and what was left? "I don't want to destroy her," I said. "I just want my money back." Frank nodded. "Then we make her an offer. Return the remaining funds, set up a payment plan for the rest, and we drop the lawsuit. She keeps her salon, her license, her reputation. What if she says no? Then we go to trial. And I promise you, Mrs. Collins, we will win." Frank sent the settlement offer that afternoon. 72 hours to respond. The terms were clear. Full repayment of $200,000 over 5 years, secured by a lien on the salon's assets. In exchange, I would dismiss the lawsuit with prejudice. Victoria's response came in 47 minutes, not from her lawyer, from her directly. An email to my personal address. She must have gotten it from Marcus. "You think you've won," she wrote. "You haven't won anything. You've destroyed your son's marriage, his business, his future. Everything Marcus has worked for is gone because you couldn't accept that you weren't important enough to be invited to a party. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To punish us for not worshiping you. Well, congratulations. You've proven that you're just as toxic as Marcus always said." I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Frank. "This is harassment," he said when he called, "and it strengthens our case. She's not responding through counsel, which means she's panicking. Her lawyer is probably furious." Victoria's formal response came the next day. A counteroffer. She would repay $50,000 over 10 years. No admission of wrongdoing, no lien on assets. Take it or leave it. "It's insulting," Frank said. "She's stalling, hoping you'll get tired and accept less than you deserve." "I'm not tired. I'm just getting started." Frank smiled. That's what I wanted to hear. We rejected the counteroffer and requested an expedited trial date. The judge, who'd seen the evidence, was sympathetic. He scheduled the trial for March. In the meantime, Victoria's world continued to crumble. 2 of her stylists quit after reading about the lawsuit. A third was poached by a competitor who saw an opportunity. The salon, once fully booked, now had more empty slots than full ones. Victoria's mother called me. First time she'd ever called directly. "You need to drop this," she said without preamble. "You're ruining my daughter's life over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" She stole $200,000 from me. She borrowed money for a business. That's what families do. Families also invite each other to parties. Families don't mock each other behind closed doors. Families don't plan how to extract maximum investment from their relatives. I've heard the recordings, I continued. I know exactly what Victoria thinks of me. So save your breath. Your daughter is going to pay back every penny she took, one way or another. I hung up before she could respond. That night, Marcus came by again. He looked worse than before. Thinner, paler, dark circles under his eyes. She knows, he said as soon as I opened the door. Victoria knows I gave you the files. Her lawyer figured it out. Nobody else had access to those emails, and the recording was from my phone. It wasn't hard to put together. Marcus laughed bitterly. Everything she threatened. Told me she'd ruin me. Told me she had recordings of her own, of me saying things I'm not proud of. Threatened to release them to the press, to my employer, to everyone I know. What kind of things? He looked away. Things about you, about Dad. Complaints I made when I was angry. Stupid things I didn't mean. I sat down heavily. Like what, Marcus? Like calling you controlling, saying you'd never let Dad have any independence, complaining that you wanted to run our lives. He was crying again. I didn't mean any of it. I was just venting. Victoria always encouraged me to talk about my issues with you. I thought she was being supportive. Now I realize she was collecting ammunition. I should have been angry. Instead, I just felt tired. Everyone says things they don't mean, I said. Even if she releases those recordings, people will understand. Will you understand? I reached over and took his hand. You're my son. I've been understanding your mistakes since you were born. Marcus broke down completely then, 34 years old, and he sobbed in my kitchen like a child. What do I do? He asked. Where do I go? You file for divorce, I said. You get out before she takes everything you have left, and you start over. Just like that. It won't be easy, but it's the only way forward. The next few weeks were a blur of legal motions and counter-motions. Victoria's lawyer tried every trick, claiming the evidence was inadmissible, arguing that Marcus had violated privacy laws, asserting that my lawsuit was frivolous and retaliatory. None of it worked. The judge had seen the emails, heard the recordings. He knew what Victoria was. Marcus filed for divorce on February 14th, Valentine's Day. He said he wanted a date he'd remember. Victoria responded by going public. She posted a long, tearful video on Instagram, talking about how her mother-in-law had torn apart her family, how Marcus was confused and manipulated, how she was the real victim. The comments were brutal. Half the people believed her. The other half had done their research and knew better. I stayed offline, stayed quiet, let the legal process work. And on March 1st, the day before the trial was set to begin, Victoria's lawyer called Frank. She wants to settle, he said. Full amount. Your terms. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt relieved. Tell her yes, I said. Tell her it's over. But of course, with Victoria, nothing was ever that simple. The settlement signing was scheduled for March 3rd at Frank's office. Both parties, both lawyers, a notary public. Simple and straightforward, or so I thought. Victoria arrived late. She wore all black, like she was attending a funeral. Maybe, in her mind, she was. Let's get this over with, she said, not looking at me. Frank walked through the terms. Full repayment of $200,000 plus legal fees, totaling $247,000. Monthly payments of $8,000 over 31 months, secured by a lien on the salon. Any missed payment would trigger acceleration of the entire debt, plus a 12% penalty. Victoria signed each page with sharp, angry strokes. When she finished, she finally looked at me. You must be so proud of yourself. I'm not proud of any of this. Really? You didn't enjoy destroying my business, my marriage, my reputation? Victoria, you did that yourself. All I did was tell the truth. The truth, she laughed. You want to know the truth? The truth is that Marcus never loved you. Not really. He stayed in touch because he felt obligated, because you made him feel guilty every time he tried to have his own life. Victoria, her lawyer started. She needs to hear this. Victoria leaned forward, Her eyes locked on mine. You were never the devoted mother you pretend to be. You were suffocating, controlling. Harold was the only thing standing between you and Marcus's complete freedom. When he died, Marcus finally had a chance to break free, and you couldn't stand it. I sat very still, let her words wash over me. I was never the villain here, she continued. I was the person who helped your son become his own man, and you hated me for it. So you did this. You used your money as a weapon because it was the only power you had. The room was silent when she finished. Are you done? I asked. I stood up, walked around the table until I was standing next to her. Victoria, I spent 40 years listening to people try to manipulate me with words. Clients who wanted to hide expenses, bosses who wanted to shift blame. I learned to look past what people say and focus on what they do. I held up the signed settlement agreement. This is what you did. You took $200,000 from a widow. You excluded her from a celebration she funded. You lied about investors who didn't exist. You laughed about her behind her back. And when you got caught, you attacked her son, the man you supposedly loved. Victoria's composure cracked. Just slightly, just for a moment. Everything else is just words, I said. And I stopped believing your words a long time ago. I walked out of the office without looking back. Outside, the March air was cool but hinting at spring. Kathleen was waiting by her car. It's done, she signed. I thought about it. Better than I expected. I think I'm actually okay. We went for lunch at a small cafe near the courthouse. The same place Harold used to take me after his bank manager meetings. I hadn't been back since he died. So what now? Kathleen asked over soup and sandwiches. Now I wait. First payment is due April 1st. If Victoria misses it, I can seize the salon. Do you think she'll pay? I think she'll try. The salon is everything to her. She'll do whatever it takes to keep it. I set down my spoon. He's coming for dinner next week. First time since this all started. That's good. That's progress. Is it? I don't know what to say to him. How do we just pick up where we left off? Kathleen reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You don't pick up where you left off. You start somewhere new. That's what families do. The first payment arrived on March 28th, 3 days early. An automatic transfer from Lux Salon and Spa to my bank account. $8,000, just as agreed. I stared at the notification for a long time. It felt strange. After everything, the betrayal, the lawsuit, the ugly words, it came down to this. Numbers on a screen. Monthly deposits that would continue for the next 2.5 years. It wasn't justice exactly. It wasn't revenge. It was just resolution. Marcus came for dinner that Saturday. He brought flowers, white roses, Harold's favorite, and a bottle of wine. I wasn't sure what to bring, he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. I feel like I should have brought more. Or less. I don't know. Come inside. It's cold. We sat in the living room at first, neither of us quite knowing how to start. Harold's chair sat empty between us. I've been seeing a therapist, Marcus said finally. Victoria. She did a number on me. On both of us, I guess. The therapist says it'll take time to untangle everything. That's good. I'm glad you're getting help. She says I need to work on setting boundaries, on trusting my own judgment again. He paused. On rebuilding my relationships. Is that why you're here? Partly. He looked down at his hands. But mostly I'm here because I miss you. I miss Dad. I miss Sunday dinners and Christmas mornings and birthday calls that weren't about money. Can we try again? Not pretend nothing happened, but maybe start fresh? Like we're meeting for the first time? I thought about everything Victoria had said. About me being controlling, suffocating, about Marcus wanting to break free. Maybe some of it was true. Maybe I had held on too tight after Harold died. Maybe I had made Marcus feel guilty for living his own life. But I'd also been there. For every scraped knee, every nightmare, every heartbreak. I'd been there, and I always would be. Let's start with dinner, I said. We can figure out the rest as we go. We cooked together that night. Harold's beef stroganoff, the one I'd never been able to make quite right on my own. Marcus remembered the secret, a splash of Worcestershire sauce at the end, something Harold had told him when he was 12. We ate at the kitchen table, not the formal dining room. We talked about safe things first, the weather, Marcus's new apartment, a book we'd both read. Then, slowly, we moved toward harder topics. I should have seen what Victoria was, he said. I should have believed Dad. You were in love. Love makes people blind. It wasn't just love. It was need. She made me feel like someone. And when you feel like nothing, that's hard to resist. You were never nothing, Marcus. Not to me. Not to your father. He didn't respond, just nodded and took another bite. After dinner, we went through some of Harold's old photos. The albums Victoria had always called dusty and depressing. Pictures of Marcus as a baby, a toddler, a gap-toothed first grader. Pictures of Harold and me on our wedding day, young and hopeful and completely ignorant of what lay ahead. I want this one, Marcus said, holding up a photo of the three of us at the beach. He was maybe 4, sitting on Harold's shoulders, grinning at the camera. I was standing beside them, one hand shading my eyes from the sun. Take it. Take whatever you want. He left around 10, but before he went, he hugged me. Really hugged me. Not the stiff, obligatory embrace he'd given me for years. A real hug, the kind he used to give when he was small. Thank you, he whispered, for not giving up on me. Never, I said. No matter what. April came and went. June. Each month, another $8,000 appeared in my account. Each month, Marcus came for dinner. We were careful with each other at first, tiptoeing around painful topics. But gradually, slowly, we found our way back. The salon struggled, but it survived. Victoria scaled back, let go of the expensive celebrity colorist, negotiated with her suppliers. She was nothing if not a survivor. I didn't follow her on social media anymore, didn't drive by the salon to see if the lights were on. I'd gotten my money back, or I would eventually. That was enough. On what would have been Harold's and my 44th anniversary, I drove to the cemetery. I'd been avoiding it for months, but it felt like the right day to finally go. The headstone was simple, just his name, the dates, and the words, "Beloved husband and father." I found your research, I told him. About Victoria. I wish you'd told me. The wind rustled the grass. No answer, of course, but I felt something anyway. Some presence. I got the money back. Not the ring, but the money. And I got Marcus back. Sort of. We're working on it. I sat down on the bench beside his grave. I know you'd say I should have been more careful, that I should have read the contract, that I was too trusting. I wiped my eyes. But I think you'd also be proud of me, for fighting back. For not letting her win. A bird landed on Harold's headstone. A robin, bright red against the gray granite. It looked at me for a moment, then flew away. I love you, I said. I'll always love you. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dinner next Saturday? I'll cook. I smiled and typed back. I'll bring dessert. The robin might not have been a sign. The wind might not have been Harold answering. But sitting in my kitchen that evening, looking at the empty ring finger that no longer hurt quite so much, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not the absence of pain, not the pretense that everything was fine, just the quiet knowledge that I had survived the worst of it, that I had fought for myself when no one else would, that I had rebuilt what I thought was broken beyond repair. Victoria would make her payments. Marcus would keep coming to dinner, and I would keep living one day at a time, in the house where Harold proposed, where we raised our son, where I had lost everything and found it again. Some things are worth fighting for. Some battles are worth the pain. And some silences, like the one on the phone that day when Marcus asked about the payroll and I said no, are worth more than words can ever express. The VIPs hadn't told him, so I did, and that made all the difference.